Good afternoon, welcome to Manchester Film Festival, welcome to the last day of Manchester Film Festival. We're going to talk about an animated short, we're going to talk about Static Focus. Please introduce yourself, introduce the film and tell me what you did on the film.
Awesome. Thank you first for having us and having our film here. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm Jay Lawson, the director, story artist, lead animator on the film. And here is...
Lucy Leadsom. I worked as visual development artist and also background artist. And later I did audio and that stuff.
Audio is a great place to start. Like, as an animator, I guess you have one very specific set of skills and you're not aware of what needs to happen to make sound work. You're like, sound needs to be in there. But like, what level of interaction happened before you were like, here's my thing, put some sound on it?
Yeah, okay, so it was a bit of a tricky process. For the majority of the filmmaking, we didn't have the screens. So those actually had, those were very all-encompassing for like what you have for the audio. But once I had that in, it was, I've had a bit of experience on other previous short films before that. I was always the person who was like, yeah, I'll take it on. It's okay, I'll take it on. Whilst everybody else is busy trying to just not touch it with a 10-foot pole. I'm like, yeah, cool. I was brought up by a father who did audio and essentially composition in his own spare time, so I can like prod him and go, hey, please give me some advice on this thing because I'm an artist. Please help. But yeah, audio level is definitely something that I'm very aware to as well, because I don't like really punchy, harsh sounds, so that's something that I really tried to keep a balance of. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, the whole thing with the screens, that was my fault. Our film is about...
So, sorry, not to interrupt, but for anyone who's not seen it, what is the thing with the screens?
Yeah, so the film came about from an analogy I heard once about ADHD. So whilst I was getting a diagnosis, it was during university at the beginning, and I was told the analogy of it's like you're watching television and the channel keeps changing, but you don't have a remote, and so you can't control it. And so in that analogy, the channels are your focus. It's like your focus keeps shifting around, but you have no control over it. And I was like, okay, how do I visualize that? And so inevitably, being the great director that I am, I took that literally. And I was like, yeah, let's just make it literal. That's a brilliant, fun idea to do. And so the screens were meant to be the inner thought of the characters. So it's a visual representation of what they're thinking, what they're seeing. Everyone around them has some sort of control over it, whether that be his colleagues who are talking about what they're going to get for lunch. So it's like pizza or deli food. And then, but then his envy is part of it. So you see him being envious of the fact he can't control his screen, and then you cut back to him being frustrated that he can't get something to work and he keeps getting distracted with random things like Godzilla. And so the screens became a visual representation of an internal thought. So it's an internalization or externalization of an internal process. And so that's ultimately what that was. But in the filmmaking process, I always knew kind of what I wanted from it, but I was so wrapped up trying to get all of these different plates to keep spinning that it meant that I didn't end up storyboarding it until just as I was animating it pretty much. And so what she's saying about being annoyed about the audio is when you're coming up with the audio idea for what's going to be on the screen and you don't get it until a few weeks before you do the audio, not fun. And I have to always apologize for that and prefix it with, I'm so sorry, but it is one of those where we were ultimately really happy with how it came together, and a lot of the team were like, oh wow, there was actually a vision with it, there was an actual idea for what you're going to do with it. And so that was a really fun, nice thing to have like one of my teammates go, oh, you're actually not like silly or stupid for it, like I actually see what you were getting at now. And it was a really nice moment when everything clicked together for it. But yeah, no, the film is ultimately about ADHD, but I feel like it works better for an analog for creativity regardless. It's that frustration of trying to make something, trying to succeed with something, and doing the best you can, but then having that frustration met with sometimes you just can't control certain things, and it's relinquishing that control essentially.
I think control's an interesting thing to pick up. Sorry, do you want to come in there? Yeah, no.
No, I just wanted to add the entire reason why I was frustrated with it is because I did the Foley work. I was essentially with my father in our kitchen, going all across the house, very last minute because we didn't know what was going on, like shutting the fridge, doing all of these sort of things, and yeah, the Foley work is why.
Yeah, like animation tends to be all of one style, like it's either hard or it's soft or it's smooth or it's not. But you have with the screens like almost contradictory images within your frames. Like how difficult was it to animate essentially two sets of things simultaneously?
Yeah, so I did almost all of the screens I animated. So like I don't think when it comes to the rest of the team, they did like a lot of character animation, but because it was so late in the production and all of my other teammates, they'd graduated and they decided they wanted to move on, it meant that the screens were solely me. And so it was so funny trying to come up with the ideas for it because, like you said, you've got a lot of contrasting imagery intentionally, and it was like trying to think of funny little things, but also things that like I was sat there like trying to do the animation myself, and I was like, as I'm drawing, I'm thinking of something like, I'm like, oh, rubber ducky, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll just add a rubber ducky in there.
I mean, the Godzilla part was mine. I designed this Godzilla prop on his desk, and I was like, that's absolutely going to come up into his mind.
And yeah, so I had to make like at least a little like, or as we called him, because we don't have the copyrights for Godzilla, we called him Big Lizard. Yeah, and so it was one of those where like having to animate twice effectively, because we animated the actual characters, then we animated the screens, and then I had to actually do the After Effects and like track it all and make it all, and it was a lot of work, and it was quite frustrating with how much work it was, but I ultimately think that the story is in the screen, and it's like one of those where like otherwise it's just a guy with a box for a head, and it was I was talking about it a second ago. A funny little anecdote was when we were pitching our films to our tutors and our lecturers. We had a tutor, Tim Hollyman, and I was sat down with him and I was talking about it, and he was giving me a bunch of ideas. He goes, "You've really picked an awful idea to do in 2D, because you've got these box head characters moving around in a 3D, like in a 2D space, but you want a 3D like object in there. You're gonna have a hell of a time with it." And then I was like, "Yeah, and I want to animate the screens on top." But no, it was one of those where trying to keep that in mind was such a frustrating and difficult thing, but ultimately a rewarding, and ultimately it's the last piece of the puzzle that makes it work.
Unfortunately, I think we're running out of time.
That's okay.
But I will ask you before I let both go, what's next for your film and what's next for yourselves? Maybe something less challenging. Who knows?
So I'll go first and then pass on to Lucy. What's next for the film? I don't know what festivals it's been submitted into outside of this. Is our course with the ones who submitted them, but I hope that people see it, because ultimately that's why we create these stories. We create them so that they can be engaged with, and ultimately I hope that some people can see themselves in it, see their creative process, maybe see the frustrations that they have and their own thought processes in it, and maybe get some catharsis out of it, because ultimately it's not going to help you solve anything, and it's not going to revolutionize your life, but it might give someone the ability to go, oh, that's how I feel. And I think that catharsis is something that I'd like. Next, for me, I'm currently working as a story revisionist on a 3D kids show, and so that's a fun challenge because it's a new thing for me. But after that, I hope that I can move back into doing film, either short films or feature film or what have you. But I just want to tell stories. That's ultimately what it boils down to as a story artist.
For me, currently, I'm working as a digital map painter. I was a visual development artist before that on I think I can say a Netflix production, but I can't really say much more past that. But I'm working on that. But I really want to go back to visual development and perhaps go back into 2D backgrounds. The passion of this project, really. I want to get back into that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.